And welcome back, everyone. This afternoon, we're delighted to be joined by Rhiannon Duffield and Greg Murray from our headline sponsors, Elbit Systems UK. As May said this morning, Elbit Systems UK are at the forefront of technological innovation within the defence industry. And Rhiannon and Greg are here this afternoon to talk about Elbit, the organisation, what they're doing, and how to find a role within Elbit. Rhiannon is HR manager at Elbit, and then Greg, after 17 years as a warfare officer in Royal Navy, Greg is now business development manager. Rhiannon, Greg, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for having us. If I give myself a little introduction, Greg will join at the end of the presentation and he's going to give a much more personal insight into his story, and I'll look at Elbit Systems, what we offer and what we might have for some of you. Brief introduction to me: I work in HR, obviously not from a defence background at all. Historically, I've worked within education in universities with the NHS, and Elbit Systems is my first venture into the world of defence. For me, the move into this industry was inspired by the opportunity that the company has, the position of where we are right now, and being able to be instrumental in the development of the HR function and go through the massive growth that Elbit Systems is going through. And that's not something that every role or every company can offer you. So when I saw that opportunity, I took it. For those of you who heard the talk from Martin, he gave a pretty good summary of our business, but I'll do a brief summary now for those of you who weren't with us. So Elbit Systems is a global organisation. It was founded in 1966 in Haifa in Israel, and has grown exponentially over the years and is now present in 20 countries, and we primarily supply into the defence sector. Core business is technology, as Chris mentioned, and we've got a really broad product portfolio, and that's constantly developing to ensure that what we offer to our customer is something new and something different to some of our competitors. And we work across air, maritime, land, cyber, and our wide range of products and projects that we do cover those areas, and we'll touch on some of what we do in a moment. Elbit's presence in the UK is about 15 years old. They started by buying some companies, having some subsidiaries over here, wholly owned as part of their acquisition strategy, and then made a real commitment to Elbit growing their brand in the UK. And so opened our London office, grew our business development team, and gave us that focus to start the journey to delivery and ES UK as it looks now. Those business development efforts are really coming to fruition now, and our parent company is continuing to invest heavily in us so that we can step up and grab the opportunities here in the UK and grow accordingly. People. So HR, obviously, people are our huge focus. The people within our business are everything. Obviously, our technology is really important to the customer, but how can we bring that to them without a really strong team to do that? Our current demographic is a huge mix. So there's people like myself who come from a commercial background. We have people who've worked within defence commercially, and you'll see from the chart there, about a third of our employees are from a military background. If we included our consultants who support us on bids and projects and give us their subject matter expertise, I think the percentage there would be higher, because a large percentage of our consultants come from a military background as well. Essentially what we look for in people are people who can bring us the skills, they can bring us experience, and they can bring us that fire and desire to do the best for our customer, and help us to achieve our ambitious plans. The sorts of roles that we have within the company, we'll go into some detail about that a little later, but the military background can be a huge addition to somebody's attractiveness to us. Some of our roles are absolutely essential that someone has a military background. An example, for one of our new projects, we needed a submarine subject matter expert, and so the only person who's going to offer us that is the naval submariner. We've got other roles that it's not essential to have the military background, but that experience can be hugely beneficial. So again, in the same project as the submariner role, we had a transition manager, and that was filled by an RAF leaver who'd worked within HR and was chief of staff previously, and his knowledge of the defence industry has really helped us out with his role. So even where it's not necessary to have a military background, it can be a huge benefit. Earlier, someone was asking, I think it was in the speech with Patricia, asking about those qualifications and the additional skills. Many of our military background folks come to us after some commercial experience, and especially within areas like program management, any of those qualifications can only be a huge positive. The combination of military background and commercial experience is really strong for us when someone comes in, especially in a more senior program management type role. Our culture at ESUK is really diverse, mentioned kind of the different backgrounds, the different experiences, but we're also cross-cultural in terms of our relationships with our parent company in Israel. And we have a lot of secondees who come and work with us here in the UK as well. And we're essentially a really well-established and well-funded startup, and we're on that journey into a much larger organisation. Company values, as we're part of a growing organisation, we're going from, when I joined 2 years ago, I think there was something like 20 employees. We were really small, really kind of just trying to get things moving. And these values have been really important to us, and really important to us in our recruitment process, because we want to find the right people. We don't just want to fill the roles. We want to create a team that is going to be instrumental in our future. Something that I think has been really huge for me in this role and my experience with Elbit has been the right and responsibility to contribute. You don't always get that in organisations. I've worked in places where you do your job and that's that. Whereas here, I absolutely feel like I've got kind of that input into what Elbit Systems is doing and how we're moving things forward. So I'll just touch really briefly on a couple of our programs that we already deliver. You might be familiar with some of them from your experiences. We are delivering the Morpheus Battlefield Management application for the Army. We have Joint Fire Synthetic Training, which our subsidiary Ferranti are delivering. We have a joint venture with Thales for the Watchkeeper UAV, and Affinity, joint venture with KBR, which supplies and maintains 3 fleets of aircraft within the UK MFTS, which is the UK Military Flying Training System. And recently, we've been very successful in our business development. So in 2020, a lot of the business development work, the hard work that the bid teams have put in have really come to fruition. We were awarded 2 significant programs late in 2020, Selborne and DGFI, which we'll touch on. And we have grown hugely over the last 2 years, and based on even just the awarded programs that we've got now, we'll quadruple in terms of headcount in the next 2 years. There are other projects and contract awards in the pipeline, some of which we're really close to winning. So it's looking really positive for the future. There's a lot of exciting things coming. I mentioned kind of my reasons for joining Elbit, and a huge part of that was the opportunity to be part of kind of the early days and part of that journey. It's not something you'll get if you join a really large established organization. And it can mean that you actually can kind of put your stamp on things and have an impact in what this future looks like. So the 2 new contracts, DGFI and Selborne, we'll just look at those really briefly. DGFI is Dismounted Joint Fires Integrator Programme, and it delivers a target, detect, recognise, identify and locate and communicate capability to 2 critical Army user communities, Joint Tactical Air Controllers and Fire Support Teams. ESUK will design the system, integrate the system, provide radios, hardware, software, and we will deliver approximately 350 kits for that one. Project Selborne. So Selborne is part of the Royal Naval Training Modernisation. We're part of a consortium with Capita, Raytheon and Fujitsu to deliver this to the Royal Navy. Our part of this is focused on the Future Submarine School, and we'll also be taking on some simulators, and it's very training and simulation focused. The Selborne team will grow. We're recruiting new people for this role at the moment, and we'll also transition approximately 100 people from some of the existing contracts. That will happen in 2022, so that'll be part of our big growth as well, and build a programme support team based in Bristol, and the operational delivery will be around the UK, as you can see from that infographic there. And so all of this means we're now recruiting As we grow, we're recruiting all of the different teams. Your military experience is a great match with the defence sector in many ways, and something that Greg will cover when he talks about his journey. We have 4 core areas of role types within the company. Engineering, which might be the obvious one, as we are a technology company. And that ranges from systems engineers, software testers, engineering managers, sometimes subject matter experts. Programs. All of these projects are managed and have a core team which really helps the engineers and everybody else to make sure that we achieve delivery. And as part of this growth, our business development team continues to adapt and grow, and subject matter experts are pulled in to support those teams depending on what the projects are at that time. To grow a company and to turn it into something as big as it will be, our functional areas have to grow as well. And that covers a wide range. So that can be IT, facilities, HR, security control, export, commercial. All of those areas are really important for the success of our business and in areas that we're growing and recruiting within as well. So how do we recruit? We recruit with our external recruitment partners, and the Officers Association are one of those, and they are supporting us with our roles. There's a couple of roles that we want to highlight today, but at the moment we've got about 30 live roles, and we've got a really strong pipeline. Those projects that I mentioned are in their mobilization phase. As we move through delivery, there'll be more roles at various points of those contracts, which will then come live as well. So a couple of roles to point out. Project managers, this is an area where we've got a lot of existing employees and consultants with military background, plus some commercial experience often. We're looking for a project manager for the FSS, which is part of the Project Selborne. So that person will ideally have training and simulation experience, and they will lead that project team for the Future Submarine School. Systems engineering in electronic warfare. Again, electronic warfare is a pretty defence specific area of industry. So systems engineers with that experience often come with military background as well, often within the Navy. We're looking for an engineering manager. So again, within Project Selborne, the engineering manager will be a technical expert, probably a deep technical expert, someone who really understands training and simulators, but also someone who's got some really strong skills in management, can lead some people, can manage some kind of a multiple teams of technical experts on that project too. We're looking for roles across all levels. So I mentioned the functional areas. Even within engineering, you then have a function of the engineering side in order to make sure that across the business we are kind of streamlining, we're using the same standards, etc. So we're looking for a head of systems engineering, so someone with a career history of strong systems engineering would be suitable for that. One of the things to also mention is we've got lots of live roles, but actually one of the really important ways that we work is when we find somebody who's good, who's got some really strong skills that match with our projects, match with our needs. If they don't necessarily fit perfectly into one of those roles, we would absolutely consider them. So, and I think some of the other speakers have spoken about, you know, should you approach people, when should you approach them? In terms of that timing, we often have people kind of cross our paths who we will keep on file or we'll have some initial conversations with, and then really just kind of think about how would they fit, where might they fit, what does that look like? So it's never too soon to start having those conversations. So one of the things that is really important to Elbit Systems, if we can move to the next slide, is we're really clear that people are our biggest asset. Our senior leadership, our CEO Martin, who we heard from earlier, are totally bought into the fact that we need to look after our people. We need to attract the people that have got the right skills and personalities so that we can achieve all of our exciting future goals. There's a lot of ways that we do that, and probably the most tangible way in order to kind of show this to you at this point is benefits package, which we're regularly reviewing and adding to. So you can see from there, there's a lot of kind of life cover, pension, all of the important things for any employee. We do a lot in terms of well-being, discounts, kind of we're about to launch an electric vehicle scheme, so employees can salary sacrifice so they can access a brand new electric car. Something that we found really important through our recruitment at the moment is there's a huge drive for people, especially with COVID, to have remote and flexible working practices. We've always had a degree of flexible working, but on, I think it was the 17th of March last year, we all went home and have primarily been remote ever since. Essential work still continues on site, but most of us have really learned that we can absolutely work really well, really effectively remotely, which I think whilst we could have done it before, we just got in the habit of always being in the office. We are also really excited to go back to the office and actually see each other. But I think what that has done is meant that our future working practices will be a hybrid. So if we need to be on site, we will be. If we have meetings and we want to be face to face, we absolutely can. I'm sure you will all understand security classifications and work like that will also dictate that some roles will need to be on site more. But the reality will be, if you don't need to be there, you can choose whether you want to be on site or working from home, and we can all kind of find our own balance of what that looks like for the individual. So we have quite a lot of experience of welcoming employees from military careers and as well as after they've joined industry experience. And we've already got a really strong community. If we look across our employees, we've got people from all the different forces and all different ranks, all different skill sets, etc. So anybody joining Elbit Systems would not find that they are in unfamiliar territory. We've got a lot of people that will absolutely have understood your journey and have been through it themselves. In terms of transition, what does that look like? We've supported people differently. I think part of the joy of being a relatively small developing organisation in the UK is that we can be quite adaptive. Some of our transition folks have wanted and needed a lot of support. We've supported them with things like civilian work attachments as they prepare to leave, and depending on what their situation and their needs are, we've made sure that they've got that support through that process. Once military leavers are joining us, they're allocated a mentor within Elbit who have already done that journey and has that experience of both leaving the military and settling into ESUK, as well as all of our core induction and preparation periods to really make sure that people who join us are set up for success. In terms of development, hugely committed to future development. Some of our employees, not just from a military background, might need some additional training, might need some skills that need to be developed, and all of those things are really important to us because we don't hire people that we want to lose, we want to keep them. So we're really committed to that. And now my colleague Greg is going to speak to you about his story and how he's come to join us and his experiences of that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Greg Murray. I'm currently the Business Development Manager looking at maritime areas within Elbit Systems UK. And to give you a bit of background to myself, I was a serving commissioned officer in the Royal Navy for 17 years as a warfare officer before leaving in 2017. I guess my story might be slightly unusual to some, but may have synergies with some of you that are also on this call today. But for myself, when I left in 2017, I was fortunate enough to be able to take a year out. And what do I mean by taking a year out? Well, actually, it was a year where I didn't need to work. I could afford not to. I had resources available to me to be able to just reflect and take time to regroup and understand and reset myself. And that year out actually helped me to refocus, helped me to understand what it was that I wanted from a second career outside of the services, but also to reflect on an ability to understand what was important to me. And some of that has been covered by speakers this morning. And hopefully, I think my story may help just cement those stakeholder lines that were taken and what was mentioned this morning by various people. During the year that I had out of industry and also the military, it was a year that enabled me to also reach out to the Officers Association. And my engagement with the charity has been positive from day one. And not only did they provide support and advice, they also added significant value to elements of the workshops that I took part in as part of the career transition partnership scheme. And that support from the OA, the workshops, the CV mentoring, the on-demand webinars, but also the jobs opportunity page that's within the organisation, enabled me to not only examine myself in detail, but also enabled me to examine what opportunities industry were offering, what opportunities and sectors industry were promoting through the Officers Association, but also to understand what skills industry were looking for. And again, this was highlighted and has been highlighted by numerous speakers this morning, that our skills and experience are paramount. Our skills and experience are available and are ones that industry is seeking continuously. One of the areas of advice that was given to me, and again has been mentioned this morning, was about utilising a network. Some of the terms have been used of building a network, finding a network, but I like to use the term utilising a network, because what I've looked and thought about is it's not just about reaching out to new people and reaching out to people in industry that you may not have met before to ask for their advice or their support or their thoughts. But actually, for me, it was about reaching out to my existing network and thinking about the network that I had already. And as part of that network, as an example, consisted of consisted of friends, consisted of serving colleagues, consisted of non-serving people that I knew that had left and had already transitioned. It also consisted of neighbours, people within my community, having a conversation with somebody in a coffee shop because they're sat there working, actually enabled me to understand what it is they do, but also enabled me to understand what journey they may have gone through going forward. And all of that knowledge in a network that was already established, that actually didn't take much effort. It just meant picking up a phone or sending a WhatsApp or a text message to a friend to say, look, I'm doing this at the moment, what's your thoughts? You know, I had a cousin of mine offered some pearls of wisdom with her experience in industry, but the most significant bit of advice that I got was from a university friend of mine who 21 years ago now started working in London and has had a successful career of working for the Big Four within the city. And reaching out to James and asking him if he had time for a coffee when I was next in London, catch up, have a beer, have some food, was actually the pearls of wisdom that I needed to really define the direction of travel that I wanted to go in. And the things that James mentioned to me has come out in a conversation and a presentation this morning that Patricia gave, was about brand, about understanding what it is that my brand was and understanding where it is I wanted to go with my brand. And part of that is looking at what did I know? What was my knowledge? Where was my knowledge? Also, what skills and experience was I bringing to the party, or did I bring to the party in going forward? But also linking in with the brand, what it is that I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And all of that was really sound advice that one, I won't forget, but also it also made me understand that when we leave the armed forces, or when we choose to leave the services and choose a second career, a lot of people think they need to go into an area or maybe start looking in a sector and try something different. But what James made me realize is that actually I know a lot about defense, specifically in the maritime. And so why am I not maximizing my skill set and knowledge in that area to a second career? And interestingly enough, he was probably one of 2 people that gave me that thought. Everyone else that I had spoken to or thought I needed to speak to were giving me advice about trying something new, venturing into a new industry, taking the opportunity and grasping it and the position I'm in to really diversify. But actually, for me, it was about sticking with what I knew. And that was a fundamental core principle that I wanted to take forward in a second career. And secondly to that core principle, I also knew that I didn't want to work for one of the big 4 primes within the defence sector here in the UK. So for me, it was about what did that then mean? And there's a number of SMEs out there, a number of small startups within defence and security, and we've heard from some of them as well today. So that sort of put me at a crossroads within that year. Coincidentally, and I took a phone call from someone in my established network, and it was interesting. A current serving friend of mine called me up and said, "Greg, what are you doing at the moment?" And we had a quick catch up. But actually, what his reason for the call was to say that he had become aware of a company looking for a maritime subject matter expert to come in under contract for 3 months to support them in a business campaign they were doing. A rather long story short, that company was Elbit Systems UK, and that was some 3 years ago now. And what they needed was a subject matter expert, someone who had experience in the maritime, had experience in training, had experience within the Royal Navy to support a bid team in putting a commercial proposal into the MOD for a contract. And it started my journey as a freelance consultant. I'd never thought about freelancing. I'd never thought about consultancy. I'd always thought about a permanent role within industry, but that didn't happen. However, 3 years later, I'm now working full-time for Elbit. And so why did I stay? Well, there are a number of reasons why I stayed with Elbit Systems UK, but one of the main reasons are that, as Rhiannon has said, we are a dynamic and innovative organisation. We are prepared to challenge the norms in the defence market, and as my CEO said this morning, disrupt current thinking. And all of those were areas which was important to me going forward in a second career. Elbit has a strong ethos in collaboration, working with end users and customers, but also industry partners to understand what it is, the problem they are looking for, and how we can solve that problem for them, with them going forward. Funny old thing, it's what I used to do as a career in the Royal Navy. Look at a problem, understand the problem, evaluate that problem, and come up with solutions. And that's what I do today, but in this time on the other side of the fence in the commercial sector. Also, Elbit's agile approach is something that has been really important to me. And I know people have spoken about looking at skills and what courses could be done to go forward, whether that's in project management, agile, Prince 2, or what other qualifications in industry are looking at. Well, actually, as part of my transition, I did do some project management qualifications, but I'm not working in project management by default. I'm actually using those skills in a different way to support Elbit moving forward in competing and bringing in new business. And that is something that, again, has just brought forward. So I guess that concludes where I wanted to go. I hope it's summarized a journey. I hope it's aligned to some thoughts, but also helped cement some of the topics and areas of discussion that have been brought forward so far today. Thank you.
Greg, thank you ever so much. Rhiannon, thanks ever so much. A really fascinating insight there into Elbit Systems UK, and just as somebody who's been working really closely with the team at Elbit over the last 3 or 4 months, I just want to say that it's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and I genuinely think that you demonstrate the values that you talk about, and so that's a fantastic thing to see and to hear you sort of confirm as well today. Just really quickly, Greg, we're really running short of time, but there was just one thing that I just wanted to pick up on, and that we often hear people who are leaving the military who mention that they're reluctant to go into the defence industry. You know, they want to take that step away from defence. What would you say to them?
I understand. I was in those shoes as well. I thought the last thing I wanted to do was to go back into defence, but actually, with hindsight, that was I want to say maybe a naive thought, because staying in defence has enabled me to not only use my knowledge and understanding and skills that I've gained through a 17-year career in the military, but it's also enabled me to apply them to a different working environment, a different working ethos in the commercial sector. And that's then supported experience and really supported my journey in a second career. And I see that that I can use that to maybe platform and move on to other areas, as well as other sectors. So it's about, one of the weakness in areas I did have was commercial experience. Well, actually, I'm now gaining commercial experience, but I'm using that within the defence sector to gain that experience, as an example.
Fantastic, thank you. And I am afraid that is where we're going to have to leave it. So just a quick reminder that Elbit are recruiting, and we currently, as Rhiannon said, we currently have some of the roles that Rhiannon mentioned on our OA recruit page. And I'm sure the team at Elbit would be more than happy to talk to you if you're interested in any of those roles. Thank you again for joining us both, and again thank you to Elbit for their support. If you've got any more questions for the guys at Elbit, then Rhiannon and Gemma, I think, are going to be joining us for our recruitment panel later on this afternoon.